Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over the fundamentals of yoga. So we'll just start right at the beginning with yoga and the word. And literally translated, the word means to yoke or to unite. And when we come to the practice of yoga, our intention is to bring the mind, body, and spirit together. So essentially today what I'm going to cover are some of the little basic things that you need to keep in mind regardless of the yoga practice that you're doing. So today I'll quickly go over those, and of course we have all of this information available in the studio in handout and printout form as well. So let's start with the first fundamental, centering. Every yoga practice will start with some type of centering. Usually your eyes will be closed, your teacher will guide you through a few moments of just learning to push away extraneous thoughts and to bring the mind, body, and spirit together before practice. Every yoga practice starts with some type of a warm-up, a great way to mobilize the joints and get the body ready to move. In most yoga classes, you'll be doing some type of postures or what we call physical poses. All of those poses can be modified or tailored to fit your body. For example, right now I'm sitting on a bolster, and the purpose of the bolster is to allow you to sit in a more comfortable place where your hips will be up more level with the knees. And you can see even in this position that my knees are much higher than my hips. So the bolster is what we call a prop or a tool. And in yoga, really every posture that you do can be modified to fit your body to help you be more comfortable and relax in the pose. And as you can see here, my hips are more level with my knees now. So the props, if your studio has them or if you have them at home, can really enhance your practice. So let's move to the next fundamental with this, which is the breath. Essentially, if you're not breathing, you're not doing yoga. And in most yoga practices, your teacher will cue you where to inhale and where to exhale. And while that may vary from practice to teacher, it's really important that you focus on your breath. And while there are many different types of breath, we encourage you to learn to breathe full and three-dimensionally into the body. So no breathing means no yoga. So what I'd like to do is transition and talk a little bit about physical placements. So I'll start with the hands, and for now I'm going to go ahead and move the bolster out of the way and then get a little bit of a closer shot here at hand placement. So for example, when you're on your hands and your knees getting ready for a posture, you really want to make sure that your fingers are nice and spread out, rooted and grounded onto the mat. So that as you move, and let's say you come into some type of an inversion, you have a nice, strong base of support. So hand placement is very important. And then having said that, we'll talk a little bit about the joints while you place your hands. Many times people will be hyperextended in the joint. And essentially when you place your hand on the mat, you really want to make sure that the joints face each other. We call this one eyes of the elbows. So very often in yoga you'll see hand placements, but you'll see people that are hyperextended in their joints. So it's very important to try to minimize injury that you line the joints up. So let's talk a little bit about foot placement. So what I'll do is just come to a standing position now, and in most yoga practices you aren't wearing your socks, although some people are more comfortable with socks on, or they'll wear some type of a yoga sock. But generally, your foot placement on the mat is hip distance apart. Having said that, there are some yoga practices that align the feet and legs completely together. Today I'll focus a little bit about the hip width placement. Generally, the feet and knees are about 2 fist distance apart, sort of lining the hip and the knee and the ankle up. We'll talk a little bit about the feet, especially as we get into postures. Whenever you can, lift and spread the toes, stretch the feet wide and apart. So once again, just like you did with your hand placement, you have your foot placement, again, wide and anchored. If you notice you're struggling maybe in some of your balance poses, maybe you find yourself not quite steady, start over again, putting the feet underneath the hips, lifting all 10 toes, spreading the toes out, and then try your balance pose again and see if maybe with that intention set on the foot, if you find yourself a little more stable in the position. So that's a little bit about your hand placement and your foot placement. So what we'll talk now about is the engagement of this center line. And I'll grab the yoga block now to illustrate, again, another prop that we use sometime to enhance postures. You really want to create the feeling of the insides of your legs so that you have a sort of a spiraling and a feeling of energy there in between the legs. Rather than just having the legs loose and apart, you want to create the intention and set your intention on using the energy of your inner thighs to hold your position. It'll help you keep the hips forward, the knees forward, and the toes and the ankles forward. Lots of other things that you can use the block for in yoga, but essentially they can enhance your practice. In general, when you're in a standing pose, or even in a pose where your arms are pressed into the mat, while your teacher might cue you to have your legs straight or your arms straight, we're never really locking the joints. And especially for people who have the tendency to hyperextend into the back of the leg, you might need to think about straight legs but soft knees. And then so as we close, what I'll do is just introduce you to the idea that there are many, many, many different types of yoga. Here at the studio, we practice most hatha-based yoga practices, and of course we have our own unique blend of yoga lattes, which is a combination of yoga and Pilates. And as many people as you'll find in a class, you'll find that many preferences for different types of yoga. And what I'd say is if the first one you try doesn't resonate with you, then try something different and maybe even consider doing a private lesson with a teacher. So we'll close today, and thank you for viewing the channel.